I got all the Hello, I'm Deborah. How are you? Nice to meet you. I like to read a lot. I got all kinds of crazy stuff.
Good morning. It is time to get started. Y'all should grab if there's enough seats. Please grab a seat. Hey, John Brennan. Guys.
Jersey boy, you too. Yeah, Belmont.
Everybody, please grab a seat. There's some seats over here.
Yeah, Belmont didn't either.
Good morning and welcome to the State of Small Business 2013. Hey, Diana. I'm Marjorie Young, President of SCORE. Before we get started with the meeting, please stand in honor and do of Memorial Day and say the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag's right over here.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. So thank you for coming out today. This was like a real experiment. And we took a big risk on asking our wonderful speakers to speak only 3 minutes today. So we've got a jam-packed day, and I have the general up front that's going to keep time for this. You're going to hear from 11 experts in our community that have volunteered their time to research some benchmarks that reporters and economists and small business owners can use to get a clearer picture of what's happening here in our very own Savannah, Chatham County community. It is our goal that the reports will be used year after year. We are going to have this function year after year. SCORE has sponsored it, and we have spent a lot of hours putting this together. I love it. There's more material coming in. This is great. Guys, we had 90 people RSVP, and they're still coming in. It makes me very, very happy. This tells me this has been really, really needed. I've been to so many functions with the economic forecast luncheon where they talk about manufacturing and they talk about tourism and they talk about the ports, but rarely does small business get a lot of verbiage. And poor Dr. Toma, year after year, we march up to Dr. Toma and go, hey, where are the slides for small business? And Dr. Toma, he's right, he said it's really, really hard to find these statistics. And you know what, you're right. So I apologize for all of our complaining. But the folks up here have been the solution. They have spent the past 6 months coming up with benchmarks that we can use year after year. So when we go to read in the Savannah Morning News and Adam writes something about it, or Orlando talks about it on the radio, they will now be able to include a section that says small business. You know, one of the really cool stats that Barbara's going to talk about today is, did you realize that there are 78% of small businesses in unincorporated Chatham County have less than 10 employees? We're big, guys. And with all of our numbers, we're even bigger. So thank you for sticking together. I'm just thrilled at this turnout this morning. I'm totally off script. Okay. Okay. Oh, I want to encourage each of you to tweet your favorite staff. And I want you to include the hashtag SAVSCORE, hashtag SAVSCORE. And I did a little example on each table. So that way the reporters, the economists, us at SCORE can pull the numbers that you feel are the most interesting. Hey Tricia, thank you for coming. And then we can include it in reports. So, before I thank our sponsors, I'd like to ask Senator Buddy Carter, you guys know he's also a small business owner, and Diana told me last night that Buddy is also the only pharmacist that's a senator across the United States, so welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you for being here today. I understand this is an experiment, and what an experiment. I mean, this is great to have this kind of turnout, but I think it speaks volumes about the subject matter, and that is about small business. And certainly that has a lot, it's very important to me, and it has a lot to do with the reason that I am here today, because I too am a small businessman, and that is vitally important. And I understand and I get it. But before I go any further, let me say that I think the speakers are going to be limited to 3 minutes, so I'm going to try to set the tone for that and keep my comments very short for 3 minutes. I see the 3 minutes marker up here. But, you know, it's going to be difficult, I'm sure, for these business people to limit it to 3 minutes. I know it's difficult for a lot of preachers, but when you ask a politician, come on, guys, that's really tough. But nevertheless, I do want to tell you how important this is, not only to me personally because of the fact, again, that I am a small business person. And just this morning, as I do every morning, I was at my small business. I was out front sweeping and picking up trash and doing the things that we all do as a small business person. There's no job that is below us, no job that is above us. We have to do it. And as the owner of 3 independent retail pharmacies, I have 19 employees. Of course, we started with just 1 location, with just 3 of us, and have grown to the point we're at right now. And I'm very proud of that, and that's what it's about. That's what the American dream is about, and that's what I've had the opportunity to live. It's vitally important in our community. It's also vitally important in our state. And from a state's perspective, let me tell you how much we appreciate what you do. As you know, the state has not been immune from the Great Recession. We too have had to balance our budget. We've had to make cuts. So we're pulling for you. We want you to do well too, so that we can see the revenues in the state increase. But thank you for being here today. Thank you all for the presentations that you will make. Thank you most importantly for the work that you do. For the work that you do for our community, for the work that you do for our state. Again, thank you all for being here today, and thank you for having me. God bless.
Thank you. Wonderful. He's one of us. I love it. Before I go on, are there any other political leaders in the room that would like to stand up? Buddy, thank you very, very much for coming. We appreciate it. Okay. All right. Now I'd like to thank our gold sponsors also for believing in small businesses. Here's my friend Joe Marchese with Marchese Construction. Come up here. Joe and I, we were, Adam wrote about us listening to Dr. Thomas. But ambushing, yeah.
I apologize.
But we're making it happen, and I'm glad. Thank you for being a sponsor. A check showed up on the SCORE's desk from Joe. I was like, ooh, I guess this means to go. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Mr. Martin. Hey, Kenneth. Hey. I also want to thank Bryn Grant with the Savannah Economic Development Authority. They are also a sponsor of this event. And Becky Orsley at the Savannah Mall. Where's Becky? Hey, Becky. Becky, could you tell us which restaurants donated the food today? Texas Roadhouse, Subway. Great. Well, we certainly appreciate it. We didn't know food was going to be here, and that's really fun. Savannah Mall is experiencing experiencing a comeback. They have just opened Automoto and Aquaswim and a recording studio, Nutty Bulgarian, and not to mention, he likes Toby Keith. He's going to be taking up 6 storefronts up on the 2nd floor here. I think the groundbreaking is going to be in July. Okay, I also want to thank our SCORE mentors, and if everybody from SCORE could just please stand up quickly and be acknowledged. Great. Spent a lot of hours putting this together. I know Steve was copying packets yesterday about 6 o'clock at night. Okay. The other small business supporters include the University of Georgia Small Business Development Center, the Savannah Area Chamber of Commerce, the Richmond Hill Bryan County Chamber of Commerce, the Effingham Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Business Association, the Buy Local Savannah, Pooler Chamber of Commerce, and the City of Savannah. They have all been supporters of this, and they have sent out emails and they helped to promote this event. So I thank you very much. So, are we on time? Not really. We're 5 minutes behind. Okay, so I guess I'm going to jump this section and we are going to go into, actually we're going to start the presentation. So Noah, you want to come on up?
All right, I'll be introducing.
I just want to reiterate, we only have 3 minutes and the general's going to be timing right there. And Chuck, maybe at 30 seconds, can you just wave a hand? Okay, there you go.
Dr. Michael Toma is a professor of economics specializing in macroeconomics and regional economics at Armstrong Atlantic State University. He has a PhD in economics from George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. He joined Armstrong in 1997 and became the director of the Center for Regional Analysis in 1999. Since then, his applied research about Savannah's economy has been supported by grants totaling about $650,000. In 2012, he was named the Fuller E. Callaway Professor of Economics, an award recognizing long-term excellence in teaching and research with students.
Thank you very much. Just to start out with, you can hear the data sliced a lot of different ways. The U.S. Small Business Administration categorizes a small business as a business that has roughly fewer than 500 workers or between $7 and $35 million in revenue, depending on the industry. In, of course, Savannah, Georgia, businesses that have fewer than 500 workers constitute about 81% of the establishments here and about half of the employment. If you take a different slice of that data, smaller businesses on the order of less than 20 workers per firm, that would constitute about 2/3 of the establishments that we have in the metropolitan statistical area and about 20% of employment. So obviously the numbers are skewed by the presence of very small businesses on the order of 1 to 4 employees. So that data is from 2010. You may hear some more recent data from Mr. Snyder from the Department of Labor in just a little bit. Little current data is readily available about small business activity. What I was able to find was something that came to me through the city of Savannah was applications for small business, was applications for business licenses. That would obviously include some larger businesses, but the vast majority of those would be small businesses. I've got a data set that's monthly data from 2006 to 2012. And I just took a look at business formation or applications for business licenses, or that would be more accurately said, those applications for business licenses averaged about 100 a month. Over this period from 2006 to 2012, with a jump of 2 to 3 times that figure in March. I think that's when the due date is for the applications. Equal about 129 applications for businesses per month. For the 2006. That was the last full good year before we went into the recession in 2007. And after that, the number of business formations fell by 1/3. 1/3, got the finger, so I'm running short on time, fell by 1/3 during the low point of the recession. The business closures or businesses that became inactive were about 112 a month from 2007 to 2012, with a maximum loss in 2008, a rough year of about 123 a month. We kind of do a net analysis, business applications less closures, That went from a net change of plus 15 a month in the peak 2006 and 2007 to a loss of about 12 businesses per month from 2008 to 2010 during the low point, which was in 2010, the low point. So we're talking about losing 12 businesses a month during that period of time. More recently, the data that I've seen from 2011 and 2012 is much, much better. There's a net gain of approximately 26 businesses per month since early 2011. So those numbers are turning around. They're looking a lot better. And actually, the rate of growth is better than it was in 2006. So the small business sector is experiencing a rebound, at least is what I can see in small business application data code licenses from the city of Savannah. And I think I'm done.
Great job.
It's hard to get professors.
Wow.
Allow me to introduce our next speaker, who is Gerald Mitchell. Gerald joined the Savannah Economic Development Authority in 2010 and currently leads the organization Innovation Division as the Director of Innovation. In that role, he works to further establish investment-ready startups, entrepreneurs, and existing industry to attract investment capital to the area. Prior to joining CEDA, he held economic development roles at the Georgia Department of Economic Development as a regional project manager and at the Coastal Regional Commission as the Director of Economic Development. Gerald also gained significant leadership and management experience in the telecommunications industry during his 13-year tenure, held positions directing area marketing, government relations, customer operations in both the Savannah and Jacksonville regions. Over the years, Gerald has been, and I'll go through all the organizations he's supported with an enormous amount of volunteer time. But he has been very, very active in the area, in the Savannah area community. He is a Savannah native and holds an executive master of business degree from the Georgia Institute of Technology and also earned a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from Armstrong Atlantic State University. Welcome, Joe.
Is this on? Sorry about that. Good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to briefly speak to you. I just want to make a note. I am a student of Mike Thoma, so if you like what you hear, thank Mike Thoma. If you don't like what you hear, thank Mike Thoma. So, you know, to this point, you're going to see the data presented several different ways, and it's a lot of it's going to say the same thing. So I wanted to deviate from that just a little bit. And I wanted to talk a little bit about population migration patterns and about the attraction of capital to the area. As was stated, I've been with the Savannah Economic Development Authority since 2010 in various roles and having the opportunity to start the organization's innovation initiative. As Director of Innovation, I am working with various organizations to build and support growth, primarily of new and existing technology businesses. Key components of accomplishing that are, one, improving our efforts and our efforts to attract and retain those types of companies, and two, better connecting area resources that companies will use to improve their appeal to capital. Or capital investors. Is that still working? Thank you. Sorry. I get more seconds because of that. And again, it's attracting capital to the region. So we asked a couple of questions. The first question that we like to ask companies is there a market for your product or for your service? Or who are you going to sell it to? And the second thing one of the things that we get asked, rather, is can you help me find funding so that I can either start a company or so that I can grow my existing company? In 2010, interesting stat, or as of 2020, what we should see in Savannah or in Chatham County or in this MSA, including Bryan and Effingham counties, is about 500,000 new people in terms of population. That's good for business because it means that you're going to have more people to sell whatever it is that you make. You're going to have more people to sell that product to. So in terms of investment, 3% of venture capital investment goes into seed companies, about 35% into expansion, 30% into early stage, and 32% into late stage companies. Industries that are benefiting the most from venture capital investment are biotech companies, media and entertainment companies, energy, medical equipment, and software. Now, service industry is receiving about 2% of that investment, and I know that most of the companies here are in that phase. So think about different types of investment capital or venture capital as you get to the point where you're ready to grow your company. So to sum all that up, I guess what I would say is that the benefit is that the area is going to grow. So that's great for your business, I hope. And secondly, that Georgia is becoming a much better place in terms of, or we're getting much better at attracting that capital to the area. So there is hope in terms of growing your business if you choose to go that route. The other thing that I'll say really quickly before I leave the podium is that the state has really made a great effort by passing the Invest Georgia legislation earlier this year. While it's not funded today, that legislation will be funded and will help, or we hope it will be funded, I'll say that, so get behind it if you can, but we hope that that's going to be another thing that helps small businesses, existing industry, and the startup community. So thanks for that, or for your attention while I got through that. 3 minutes is actually a lot harder than I thought. So again, thanks. I'm Gerald, and if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those at a later time.
Thank you. Up next, we have Mr. Tony O'Reilly. He's the president of the Small Business Assistance Corporation. He managed to develop small business support programs for the city of Savannah and 51 counties in southeast Georgia and South Carolina Low Country. He's held similar positions in the cities of San Diego and Long Beach, California, and has been responsible for nationwide small business development during his time in D.C. He specializes in designing innovative economic development lending programs that provide independent business owners access to a wide variety of capital markets. He's been doing this since 1976 in both private and public sectors. He's testified before a Congressional Small Business Committee on micro business lending practices and has written various articles published in national trade journals. The Southeast Region Office of the U.S. Small Business Administration has recognized him as an outstanding financial services advocate for small businesses.
I am the president of SBAC. We're at the Resource Center on Liberty Street, and we have 13 loan programs. I'm going to get right to it. In 2000, I'm going to use 2008 as a little benchmark year for us. In 2008, SBAC processed 60 loans. We're a small organization, but we have a big impact. We did 60 loans for a total dollar value of $8.6 million. Of these loans, 23 went to startups, 37 loans went to existing businesses, 30 businesses were owned by minorities or women, 231 jobs were created by these businesses over the subsequent 2 years. During 2008, 14 different banks and lending institutions were active with SBAC. Some of the banks doing multiple loans, i.e. Sea Island led the pack with 4 loans. The loans range from $1.2 million to $22,000. Our average loan size is $348,000. Quick look at bank participants reveals that the big banks, the ones with regional and national presence, were essentially absent from the list. The largest bank was Sea Island, a division of Synovus. Therefore, it's accurate to say in 2008, it was the community banks that bolstered lending for Small Business Assistance Corporation. Jumping forward to 2012, SBAC processed 52 loans for a total dollar value of $10.6 million, and 13 were startup, 14 were women-owned, and 9 went to minority businesses. 2012, 13 different banks and lending institutions were active with SBAC. SunTrust doing 4 loans, and Coastal Bank and Heritage Bank doing 3 each, with BB&T also coming into the mix. The larger banks became more active in our portfolio. Loan sizes range from $46,000 to $2.3 million. We're an average of 3.21, an average of 321,000. 2012 was a bit unique, however, because of the Jobs Act that was implemented. Refinancing. The banks jumped on that. We did a lot of refinancing. You take those out, we had a 9% decline in overall lending. But the refinancing of loans helps businesses, sweeten their cash flow. It doesn't inject new money into an economy for hiring and expanding operations, but we welcome that participation. SBA Fields 213 remains uncertain. Banks are still getting kicked with over-regulation in our point of view, and small businesses also are confused about new regulations coming down. What's the cost of all this stuff going to be? So we're kind of cautious in terms of what we're predicting for loan volume. Our projections for 213 are 21 loans funded at $15 million. We see general subpar access to capital for the balance of 213. Thank you for listening.
Our next speaker is going to be Barbara Bauckham. Barbara is the manager of the Occupational Tax Division and Building Safety and Regulatory Services for Chatham County. She is responsible for the issuance of alcoholic beverage licenses, business tax certificates, and the administration of the Department of Homeland Security systematic alien verification practice. And Ms. Barbara.
Occupational tax manager sounds dull, dry. Someone even told me this morning it sounded scary. I guess that's the tax part. But I'm here this morning to tell you it's neither of those. It's actually quite exciting. I have a unique opportunity. People come into my office every day to open up a new business. They come in with all their hopes and dreams and excitement, and they walk up to the desk with their application and their check. And I say, what kind of business are you going to open? And what they say sometimes is so surprising and exciting and interesting. Had somebody come in a couple of months ago, and I said, what business are you going to open? And he says, I'm going to have fast food restaurants pay me to take their used grease away, and I'm going to turn it into biofuel and sell it. He said, the only downfall is your car smells like a hamburger. So it is really exciting to see the personal side of folks coming in, wanting to open a business, and we've seen huge positive trends in not only the amount of businesses being open, but also the revenue they're reporting when it comes to tax return time. And now comes the dry part with some statistics, but really they're positive. We looked at 2010 to 2011, we were still coming out of the recession. The reported revenue was down 24% from the year prior to that. The amount of closed businesses had increased to 195 that year. The positive news is from 2011 to 2012, reported revenue went up 13%, and that's really significant. We only had 89 closed businesses versus 195 from the year prior, and 464 people opened a new business that year. Exciting things. And for this year, 2013, just for the first quarter, we've already had 158 new businesses open and only 2 closures, which is really significant, especially when I get to see the personal side of folks coming in with all their hopes and dreams, and that they're able to stay open is exciting. A couple other figures I really wanted to mention to you is when we're unincorporated in Chatham County, when we talk small business, we're looking at 10 or less. We have 2,566 businesses operating in the county at this time, and 78% of those are 10 employees or less, so on a very small scale. We have seen a huge trend this year in home-based businesses, so businesses that have very low overhead to open up. And I'm talking internet sales, like people making crafts, selling them on the internet, event planners, handyman, janitorial cleaning services, lawn care, mobile car washes. So folks who are unable to find a job say, you know what, I'm going to open my own business. And they come in and they have that excitement on their face and they come in to me, they open up their business, and we're coming up with these very positive statistics. So thanks for your time today.
Pretty good.
We have PJ Snyder coming up. He joined the Georgia Department of Labor in '94 after serving the United States Army for 24 years. In November 2011, he was selected to become the regional coordinator for Region 12 and was given the opportunity to work closely with economic development partners to resolve workforce-related issues and to promote business expansion. He has served on many boards, too many to read with our time, but he holds a bachelor's degree from Kansas State University. He is also a graduate of the U.S. Army Command as General Staff College, Georgia Academy for Economic Development, and Georgia Department of Labor Excel program. PJ lives in Midway, Georgia, and travels to the 10 counties in Region 12 to promote the services of the Georgia Department of Labor and to create valuable workforce solutions through strategic alliances and community partnership.
When asked to provide some data about unemployment insurance, my first thought this could be a first. It'd be the first time a speaker falls asleep before the crowd. First thing I'd like to talk about, and Mike mentioned it earlier about some differences in data. The data I have is from third quarter 2012. And the good news is that establishments with less than 50 people is growing. There's a total of about 52,499 employees out there, which represents about 39.3% of the workforce in Chatham County. It represents 7,330 businesses and establishments, which makes up 95.7%. The other good news is I used 2008 as a benchmark when things started turning for the worse, so to speak. And we're recovering quickly. Businesses are still down a little bit from those levels, as well as employees, but not by that much. As far as unemployment, the number of those employed is up from 2012 and 2008. We were at 126,000. We're right now, the labor force is up in Chatham County to 137,000. Unemployment is down to 7.2% in Chatham County. As far as small businesses are concerned, there's a couple of numbers you need to pay attention to. The first thing is that January 1st, 2013, the tax wage base you pay for unemployment rose from $8,500 to $9,500. If you're a new business in Georgia, your UI tax rate is established at 2.7% for a period of 3 years. The minimum unemployment tax rate an employer has to pay in Georgia is 0.04. The maximum is 8.1. As far as food tax, normally that's 6% on the first $7,000 worth of wages that you pay. Now, because the state's UI trust fund, we had to borrow money, you're not getting the type of credit you have in the past. That's an important thing, and until we pay that all back, you won't get the full credit you normally get. There's a couple things I like to talk about to keep you out of trouble with unemployment. The first of which is hire the right people. I know that's a hard thing to say. Take your time, do reference checks, do background checks. Anytime you're taking corrective action on an employee, document, get witnesses. Always take progressive steps, disciplinary steps when you're talking to folks and trying to correct actions. If you make a mistake in hiring, act quickly. Always respond to your notices, pay your taxes on time, provide separated notice when you have to lose an employee. I'll be around to answer questions a little bit later. My time's up.
It is my pleasure to introduce Brett Mouchier, who is a commercial real estate broker in the Greater Savannah region and associate broker with Mouchier and Mitchell Group at Judge Realty. Brett moved to Savannah in the mid-70s as a teacher after graduating from Georgia Southern University and then entered the real estate profession in 1976. In the late 70s, he entered the commercial sector. Since that time, he has been involved in many aspects of the commercial market, including office leasing, investment sales, and several phase developments, including master plan business and residential communities. Brett feels fortunate he has been able to serve the community by serving on a wide range of civic and professional business organizations. Let me introduce Brett, please.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll get right to it. Marjorie said, listen, Brett, no generalities. Stick to the facts this time, so that's what I'm trying to do. The last few years have been challenging. I'm not sure if I won't rate this, maybe talk in 3 minutes about up there with one of these recessionary challenges that we've been through. But Savannah's economy is definitely on the move. And I'll just digress a little bit to say that when I got into the business in the late 70s, we had a couple of things that were going on there, that all of your commercial brokers in the late 70s had family assets. Those were the commercial real estate brokers. And so, you know, a lot of things have changed since then. We have family-owned brokerages still. We have national companies. We have a wide variety of different types of commercial brokers. It's a real plus for the industry. The other thing that was really important to me back then was to try to start gauging the Savannah economy. And the only way to do that was really try to do an inventory of office space, which I really specialized in back then. And the way to do that was to try to talk to other real estate professionals. And Gary Mankin was one of those, Ashley Bauersachs through the years. They've all been great as far as furnishing data, which is so important to the small business community because everyone wants to know what's the state of the market. We now have another way to do that with a company called CoStar, which a lot of us have partnered up with, and they give us some great data. And I'll tell you what, doing this research has really been kind of intriguing to me, because although I realize that our economy in Savannah is on the comeback in a strong way, we've got some phenomenal numbers in it. So that's where the factual part comes in. Just a few short years ago, really starting in 2008, we had a vacancy in Class A office building that reached almost the 30% level. And that has decreased dramatically. Matter of fact, the Class A, Class B, Class C office space has dropped for the last few years, and now is less than 10%. Matter of fact, it's right under 10% total vacancy in our market. And even though maybe some of the buildings around where you see or travel or whatever may seem like they have some vacancies, again, this is CoStar's numbers that do an unbelievable amount of inventory. So, you know, we got on the overall market less than 10% as a vacancy factor. So the occupancies are up, vacancy is decreasing. Part of that reason is because there's no new product that's come on the market in the last few years. So, you know, it's a trend, it's something to watch. We think that vacancy will probably go up a little bit in the office, because hopefully what we're going to get is newer product now. We're going to have more capital, more funds coming in. So that's one of the things that we're going to hopefully see, some new office development, new renovations that are taking place. The other sector that I researched that was very surprising to me, because again, some of the shopping centers, some of the areas you see may have some vacancies, but in the retail sector, we have a vacancy hovering around about 6%. And that's down from in the mid to upper teens of a few years ago, at the height of the recession, where you had small businesses, and that's what folks I've been dealing with since the late 70s. As far as I'm concerned, the Savannah real estate commercial market has been predominantly small business, and the retail sector was small shop expansions, those kind of things, of the big box retail was kind of a market of its own. Our specialty centers in Savannah right now have almost a zero vacancy. So for shop need, consumer spending, all of that stuff, all that's expanding. The other segment of the market that I look at is the industrial market. And, you know, I don't know if you've seen, but if you've ridden through any of our industrial parks in the last 3 to 4 years, you've seen a lot of vacant space out there too. And that vacancy factor reached as much as 30%. And when you've got an overall total inventory on the industrial market of 45 to 48 million square feet. That's a huge segment at 30%. Well, that vacancy has been cut to around 15% now, and going down. So what's on the horizon? What I see on the horizon is more need for additional space, shop space, retail, and a lot of that will accommodate, I think, the small business. Again, Ashley Bowersox has a new concept, Think Savannah, which is really to build a niche into the market. Admiring for doing that, which will basically enable an employee from one up to be able to grow their business. And I think that's a concept that really needs to go to scale. I think our quality of life, the overall growth of the community here, Steve has done a great job. Port, the deepening, all of those factors are so positive for Savannah. And so I think that we're all here from a small business standpoint are going to benefit from that. We still got some hiccups in the overall economy and the recovery from the local market. Quite honestly, it's tough getting those deals to the finish line. A lot of business, but to bring them through with the financing and all those needs is kind of tough. So I'm optimistic, and we've just got to hang in there for a little while longer. Thank you.
We have Sean Maybe coming up. He is the Wells Fargo Director of Small Business Strategy for the entire Southeast region. Sean?
Good morning. Thank you, Margie, for having me again, and thanks for being here. You know, these are the days, I think I have a great job in the world, but these are the days that I know I do. Because I get to stand here amongst small business owners who believe the same thing I believe, personally. And that is that all of you in this room are the backbone of this country. You applaud that. I mean, you're the backbone of the communities that we all work, play, and live in. And by doing that, you are the people that are going to help this economy get back to where it needs to be. And so I just wanted to start my comments with that, and that is why my job is the best job I could ever have, because I get to spend all day trying to figure out how do we help you. What's that?
Just that 3 minutes.
Look, it started a little late, so I think I'm good. All right, so I'm here to talk about credit and capital, which is always, when you're a big bank, is always something that sometimes people say that there's not enough of. And so I want to talk a little before we get into the credit conversation about what businesses are telling us now. We do surveys every quarter with Gallup. And they're saying that people's confidence is getting better, but there's 3 still major things that people are concerned about. New business, new markets, and pending legislation, right? But a great thing about those 3 is 2 of them are the back to normal stuff. What small business is never not worried about getting new business and finding new customers. So it's within control. Where does credit fall into that? Interestingly enough, only about 25% of the people that we talked to said they are worried about credit impacting their business. About 40% said it's not going to have a factor, and about 5% says it's going to be a positive thing. And so the need for credit, it depends on who you're talking to, what size business. And what I'm going to be talking about here in the next minute and a half is businesses 0 to 2 million. You've already heard like 5 different definitions of small business up here. And so I decided to talk about what I felt was probably going to be in this room, which was really, really strong small businesses, $0 to $2 million a year in revenue. So here's where it comes for Savannah. So what are we seeing in Savannah? We're seeing a 70% increase in the use of credit cards as their funding source, especially in our small office and home office groups. That's over 2012 versus 2011. We're seeing even stronger use of credit cards now in 2013. Lines of credit and loans, the traditional things small business look for, a 300% increase in what we lent out in 2011 or 2012 versus 2011. So a huge increase there. But there was one market we felt was being underserved, and that is companies that were new, that hadn't established credit yet, and then companies that maybe had hurt their credit and were having a hard time. And so what we are trying to do here in Savannah and other markets is we have a secured product for small business. So we'll do a line of credit for $500 up to $100,000, and we have a 90% approval rating on that. And so though we can't lend to everybody, and we don't try to, that is what we're seeing as kind of the future for credit here. And so those types of things, there's other banks doing it, there's lots of great banks that are out there, but what we see right now is for the people that want capital, there's a greater access to capital for those folks, so specifically with the added additions of those new products at that 90% approval rate, and we're hoping that's going to help a lot of maybe people in this room get those businesses started or continue to grow their business, even if the economy has hurt their credit over the last couple of years. And my time is up.
Our next speaker is Kyle Hensel. He received his bachelor's degree and a master's degree from Georgia Southern University. He is the area director of the University of Georgia Small Business Development Center of Savannah, which is part of the Georgia SBDC network. He is the creator of Maximum Marketing within the program and also the co-creator of the Maximum Context, which shows businesses how to use technology. He has been named the Consultant of the Year, and he was also one of the State Stars of Georgia. Kyle.
Thank you so much. My name is Kyle Hensel again from the University of Georgia SBDC. And if you're not familiar with us, we offer 100% free confidential business consulting and classes to small business owners. Now, I have the privilege of working with many small business owners every day in every single industry throughout the Savannah area. And I can tell you that businesses are growing and we are seeing increases all the way around. Now, some of the stats I have are going to be based on statewide for confidentiality reasons, and some of them are going to be very local. But one thing I will tell you is that we are seeing increases. Now, one of the big things is my numbers are going to be for people that have actually received consulting or assistance, whether it's with the SBAC, SCORE, or the University of Georgia SBDC. We track all the people that we are in business with 2 years after they receive assistance, and within the past year, of all of our existing businesses, all of the businesses have increased all of their employees by 13.4%. So we are actually taking on payroll at this moment. Other than that, sales are increasing by 9.2% overall in the Savannah area. So companies are growing at this point. Now, funding is a major issue for almost every small business owner. You've heard it from Sean, you've heard it from Tony, and a little bit of everyone. In 2012, we helped with $79 million in funding in Georgia. And to let you know how it's growing, in 2013, year to date, we have already done $50 million in funding throughout the state of Georgia. Year to date last year, it was only at $28 million at this point. So we are already seeing a $22 million increase in funding in the state of Georgia just from the people that we have assisted. So another thing everyone wonders, what are the industries that are actually getting funding? Of all of our clients so far, the retail, food service and accommodation, and manufacturing are the 3 industries that are seeing the most assistance with funding so far, which takes into account a lot of the industries in the Savannah area. So we are seeing growth in funding, and companies that are receiving assistance are growing. So 9.2% on average sales growth over all different years. And if there's any way that the University of Georgia or the SBDC could be of assistance to anyone, please feel free to contact us. We're here to help with SBAC and SCORE. So, thank you.
All right, Marshall Tuck is the Corporate Small Business Program Administrator for Gulfstream Aerospace Corporation. Some of you may have heard of them, Gulfstream. They oversee Gulfstream's small business program for their 10 facilities with annual small business purchases exceeding $730 million. He works closely with the General Dynamics supply chain and oversees Gulfstream's small business supplier diversity. His enthusiasm and dedication are evident through his active participation with numerous small business chambers and councils throughout the region. He is a retired Marine with 40 years in manufacturing, graduated from Albany Junior College with an associate in management science, Albany State College with Bachelor in Business Administration, and is registered through James Madison University as a certified manager. In 2003, he earned his master's in public administration from Savannah State University.
3 minutes, wow. I'll turn on my northern accent, talk a little bit faster, and give you strictly the facts. For small businesses, everybody wants to know, what do we do? With Gulfstream, we do just about everything you can imagine with small business. And the price tag of last year with just small business was $734 million. They always want to know the subcategories. The women-owned, 76 million. The small disadvantaged business, 24 million. The hub zone, 8 million. The veteran-owned, do we have any vets? Yes. Veteran-owned, 38 million. Service-disabled veterans, 11 million. And Ability One. That's the sheltered workshops, the NIBs and niches in the past. We do $2 million a year with those, and that's the local businesses that employ about 100 of our local residents. Looking at it from a different standpoint, as a corporation, the $734 million for the coastal area, that equates to about $228 million of small business. If you look at Savannah alone, 81 million. That's a considerable amount. And it doesn't show the numbers that we don't really see, which is sub-tier suppliers. With all the large businesses, they absorb and utilize a lot of contractors, a lot of services, and a lot of other industries that we don't give credit for, but it's good for the community, we'll say. In addition, as you look at strictly the numbers with Gulfstream, last year we had about 7,800 employees. This year we're already over 9,000. We're growing leaps and bounds, and it's evident with our small businesses. As you look at suppliers and numbers of suppliers, in our database with suppliers, we have about 3,400 suppliers that we used last year. Out of that 3,400, 2,400 were small businesses, 674 were large businesses, and 192 were foreign-owned businesses. So not only are we global, we're international as well. But our bread and butter comes from the local small businesses. Now, my job is small business. That's the only reason I have a job. I champion small businesses. I'm the interface. I'm the big guy that stands behind the scenes and tells the buyers and the managers we need to use small business. And we do it because we have to, but if you look at it really, it's good business, and that's why we're in business, and that's why we do so well. In other words, if you're going to fly the fastest, the farthest, and set the standard, you have to have small businesses covering your back. So that is my northern accent, and that's strictly the facts, and I'm done on time.
It is my pleasure to introduce Brian Johnson, who is, as city manager of Garden City, is responsible to the city council for the management of all city departments and all city affairs. Prior to his appointment as city manager, Mr. Johnson served 9 years in the military as both an intelligence analyst in the United States Navy and as an infantry officer in the United States Army. Mr. Johnson holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science as well as a Master of Public Administration from the University of Georgia. He is also a graduate of Harvard University Kennedy School of Government Program for Senior Executives. Allow me to introduce Mr. Johnson.
It's right behind you.
I'm going to borrow that concept for some of my elected officials when I get back to the city.
It works.
I am going to give you a little bit slightly different take on small business. You'll know why here in a second. It's a good segue to come in after having Gulfstream talk about this. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what you oftentimes find within the corporate limits of a municipality, especially in an MSA, in a county that has 8 municipalities, and of course a number of them in the MSA. Garden City, like other cities, will have and develop a unique personality when it comes to business, especially small business, based on some factors, and Garden City is no different. We have two areas of our growth in the small business arena that are influencing small business activity in the city. And it may be the first time you've heard this said, but to a degree there's so much small business activity, it's making us uncomfortable in Garden City, and I'll tell you why. Within the last, we have about 1,500 business licenses in the city. Much of the data that the unincorporated Chatham County data, we're a microcosm of. A lot of growth in home occupation, so on and so forth. But over the last 5 years, even through the recession, Garden City has seen our business activity, small and large, grow every year. Last year, or 2011 and 12, it actually grew 35%. And small business, in our definition of small business, is also 10 employees or less. It is growing so fast in the city that it's actually putting an immense amount of pressure on us to change land use within the city. The reason the pressure is there is because of 2 factors. One, most of you know we're home of Georgia Ports Authority, fourth largest and fastest growing container port in the country. Their activity, the ancillary activity to support the port, is just bursting at the seams. The second arena or industry that's contributed to this is some of the other larger industry in or oftentimes near us, Gulfstream being one of them, International Paper, Mitsubishi Power Systems at the mega site. We have a lot of small business feeder companies that are starting up within the city to feed those organizations. We just heard Gulfstream has that, to feed those organizations parts and other support activity. That growth has been so big for us that it has actually caused our overnight population to decrease over the last 10 years, whereas our business activity has almost doubled in the last 10 years. So there are, it's great. You know, you never want to do anything to stem it, but it is requiring, of course, a lot of sleepless nights on how to manage the growth in a responsible way. And so, you know, I'm pleased to report that activity is there, but it's also scary, you know, scary and different. So, any of your questions? Thank you.
Susan Dover is the Director of Training and Development for Great Dane Trailers. She began her career in the United States Air Force, where she served in both domestic and international locations. From there, she worked for Union Camp as headquarters in Wayne, New Jersey, until she had the opportunity in 1990 to move to Savannah, where she has lived since. She began her company, SPS Solutions, in 1999, and also served as the principal for the Paper Industry Management Association's Training Institute, which provides training and consultative services to any member of the paper industry. Ms. Dover's educational accomplishments include a bachelor's degree in psychology from Oklahoma State University, a master's degree in human resource development, completion of Columbia University's organizational development and human resource development program, and MIT System Dynamics training. She is the author of the book, The Empowering Supervisor, and numerous articles about teams.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to get you involved in this conversation, so don't turn that on yet. Give me a minute, right? No, I'm kidding. What we did is Marjorie asked me if I would do a survey, and so I did a survey and put it out there in terms of the small business, and I have the results. But in the last 15, 20, 25 minutes, we've heard a lot of really positive things. So what I want to find out is, have those results changed in the last couple days or in the last half hour? So I'm going to give you the results of the survey, and then I want to get a show of hands in terms of how you feel about it now. Make sense? We're going to have to move hands fast, though. I only have 3 minutes. So the first thing was, is we did a survey. We got 39 people. 77% of the people that responded to the survey were in businesses of 10 or less, which goes right along with the statistic of 78% of the businesses here are 10 people or less. So that ties in really nicely. One of the questions was, I plan to increase inventory. This is on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being absolutely I plan to increase inventory. How many of you plan to do that? Raise your hands. To increase inventory. All right, don't see a lot. The score we got here was a 3.25. It was the highest score that was documented in terms of a feeling of confidence in the economy. The next one was, I think this is a good time to expand. How many of you think it's a good time to expand? Okay, hands up. Thank you very much. Expand your hands. There we go. Okay. The score here was a 3.13. So again, we're right in the middle. We're in the maybe, maybe not type of an area. Another one was, I plan to increase employment at my company. How many of you plan to increase employment? Okay. All right. So we're not seeing huge numbers here, are we? Okay. That one was a 3 on a scale of 1 to 5. So that was very solidly a maybe. Here were the lower numbers, which I thought was interesting. The lowest numbers we had were, I expect real estate prices to increase. That came out at a 2.22. How do you all feel now? Do you expect them to increase? Okay, but I'm not seeing a lot of hands, so I think we're about the same right there. Another one was, I expect job opportunities to improve. How many of you feel that? Okay, based on what we just heard, we're looking at employment being up, so that's a good thing. That came out at a 2.5. So that was less than maybe. That was more of a probably not. And the final one I want to talk about was, I expect the economy to improve. How many of you feel like the economy is improving? Okay, that number's a lot higher. It came out at a 2.47. So what was interesting is that overall the results were, we don't think the economy is improving. We don't really feel comfortable right now, yet we're planning on improving employment, we're planning on expanding, and we're planning on doing capital outlay. So it was sort of interesting, and in a way it was like you all instinctively knew all these things that everybody's been talking about. You think I was writing a note to my mother or something over there, but I was taking notes from what everybody was saying. Everyone says the area is growing, we're attracting capital, our revenues are up, we have less businesses closing, employment is up, office vacancies are down 10%, a 300% increase in lines of credit, sales increasing by 9.2%, business applications up, and Gulfstream's growing. So apparently you all saw those indicators, even though you didn't see the indicators and feel that comfortable with it. And where's Margaret? Did you hand them out? Okay. You all have copies of all of my data. Thank you.
Wow, can you believe what wonderful reports there? It makes me smile, and it just verifies what I, as a small business owner, have been feeling. Very, very positive. So thank you, Red, and Kyle, and Paul, and Dr. Toma, and Brian, and Tony, and Sean, and Susan, and Barbara. You all spent a lot of time putting these reports together, and you put a smile on all of our faces, so thank you so much. This does not conclude our day. I have asked Bill Dars, the columnist with Savannah Morning News, to have a Q&A now, because I know there's a bunch of questions out there. So let me go ahead and introduce Bill. Since 2000, Bill has covered small businesses and other topics as a freelancer, writing the City Talk column in the Savannah Morning News. He is also an instructor of English and journalism at the Armstrong Atlantic State University. Recent readers of the Connect Savannah voted him Best Local Columnist and Best Local Blogger for his work at the site, Savannah Unplugged. Bill, thank you for being part of this event. You want to come around that way? Because I know some of our audience will have some questions.
Yeah, so people can walk up to here and call on them.
Yeah.
First, could we get just a round of applause for Marjorie Young? Marjorie's been working on this for many, many, many months. She first spoke to me a long time ago about it. Just a few ground rules. We'll try to get as many questions in as we can. Please make your questions quick and precise as possible. So that people have a chance to respond. I'm going to take kind of a moderator's privilege of asking the first question, and I'm not quite sure who will even want to field it, but it might be Barbara, you. So just word of warning. In my work with the Savannah Morning News, I typically am talking to small business people in the downtown area, often right before they've opened or right after they've opened. By far the largest complaint, not quite universal, but by far the largest complaint, deals with issues involving permitting, zoning, inspections, etc. And while none of you necessarily work specifically with that, I would be curious if anyone would like to address that issue. And I know some of the small business people in the audience share that concern.
I can speak on that as far as unincorporated Chatham County, where I work in the Department of Building